I built a custom built-in the entire length of our living room, and this is everything that went into the process. But if you're new here, my name is Morgan, better known as Morganza Makes on TikTok and Instagram. Here on the channel, I post new videos every Friday, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. Leave a comment. I would love to answer any questions that you have, but let's get on into the video. Today is day one of building this built-in in our living room, and I have literally 1 week to do this. This might be a huge mistake starting this project, but to get started, the first thing I need to do is rip out the baseboard. We've already hit a little bit of a snafu. The builder installed the baseboard and then installed the tile. So the baseboard is like embedded in the tile. I used my multi-tool to cut the baseboards and was able to pry them away from the wall pretty easily. I got all of the baseboards pulled out in just a couple of minutes. It was a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be. And the next thing I'm gonna start doing is building the bases for the cabinet. So I'm gonna make one big base for the entire structure. In case you're curious, the garage that I'm having to walk through is an absolute nightmare. So every time we need to go get wood, I'm like literally going through a maze. It would probably be a little bit less energy like in the end if I just cleaned it right now. But of course, I am not gonna do that. I did an order pickup for the majority of the materials I would need for the build since it was basically a full wall of cabinets. This was a lot easier than going to the store for all of my supplies. But I did want to be able to look at the plywood and the 2x4s and have an option of running back inside the store to swap those out if they were warped or twisted. So I did opt for a curbside pickup for those, and surprisingly, everything that they picked out was in great condition. I'll have a list of all the materials I purchased in the description for you to reference if you're interested in building this too. Now to actually get to building. I needed to build a base since I chose to use wall cabinets instead of base cabinets. Base cabinets are meant to sit on the ground, so there's already room for a baseboard, but I used wall cabinets since they're only 12 inches deep versus base cabinets being 24 inches. So our living room is super long, but it's not super deep. So I felt like that foot was gonna make a big difference. But I needed to get those cabinets up off the ground so that I could trim it out. I basically built one long skinny box with supports all throughout, and then I secured it into the studs with screws. Before adding the cabinets to the walls, I cut a hole in the back of 2 of them to make room for the outlets that they butt up to. Perfect. Woo. And then I secured each of the cabinets into the studs and then secured the faces of each of them together. I'm cutting out the wood for the cabinet tops first. So I just cut them down to 12 inches wide, and then they like perfectly fit on the miter saw. I don't have to keep switching between the AccuCut and the rip cut for the circular saw, which makes it so much more convenient because it's like I wanted to cut the lengths and the widths at the same time. I could rip everything down to 12 and then 11 for the shelf part and then cut them shorter, but I don't know, something about like just getting every board like fully cut just makes me feel a little bit better. So I've got the 3 tabletops cut, and I'm gonna go inside and just double check that they fit on top of the cabinets. Awesome. Okay, one more. Whew. Okay. This one looks really good too. I got 1.5 inch pieces of wood that I'm going to cut down to be the trim. So on this one, I'll have to do the length and then the side. The center, I'll have to just do the length, and then that end piece, I'll have to do all the way around. So Basically, the rest of the built-in is made out of 3/4 inch plywood, so I spent a lot of time in the garage making cuts and prepping everything for assembly. I honestly think if you're able to build an IKEA Billy bookcase, then you can build this. Having a guide for a circular saw makes making the cuts pretty foolproof. I use the Craig AccuCut and the Rip Cut. All right, so it's day 2 of working on the built-ins for the living room, and I have my little cut list. I have a bunch more cuts that I need to make, and I need to rip down a couple sheets of plywood and then head over to the miter saw and cut them to length. And luckily they're all the same length, so I'm gonna do like I did yesterday and set up a stop block and hopefully just kind of power through all of those cuts, and then I can start going inside and putting this whole thing together. So I'm cutting out all of my shelves now. I already ripped them down to 11 inches, and now I'm gonna cut them to the right length, which is 28 and 7/8. I have this little stop block set up for the right length of the cut. It's kind of built into the workbench. So I hopefully can just kind of fly through these cuts and get all of these shelves knocked out. I have 80 pocket holes that I need to drill in my 20 shelves. So I'm just using the Craig Pocket Hole Jig 720. I actually just got this. I used to use just like the clamp one that you have to hand clamp on every single board. And this is so nice. Like, I don't think I would survive doing so many pocket holes with the hand clamp. Like, I would definitely have to take breaks, but this will help so that my holes are concealed, and I have like a way to attach the shelves to the vertical pieces of the bookcase. So I'm just going to drill away, and these will be ready. I'll probably end up installing them tomorrow because I still haven't decided if I want to stain the countertop portion or if I want to paint it, and I think I want to stain it. But if I'm going to stain it, I need to stain it before I put any shelves in place just to make it a little bit easier on myself. But I have like all of my wood cut, and then I'll have to cut my trim pieces, but I want to measure that after I get all of this installed, just to make sure that my measurements are accurate, because you never know. You never know what happens once you actually get stuff screwed up into place. I will also try and include like a cut list in the description for like all the cuts that I'm making, and the wood and the cabinets and everything that you need to purchase. I'll have links to that in the description of the video in case anyone else is interested in trying to make something like this. So I did decide that I want to stain the countertop portion. So I'm using Varathane gel stain in cherry wood, and I just have a sock on my hand, and I'm just going to coat this and let it sit for a couple minutes and then wipe off the excess. In a couple of hours, once this has enough time to dry, at least partially, I'll go ahead and bring it inside and we can put the bookcase together.
Oh, good.
I added tops to each of the cabinets, and then I started constructing the bookcase portion. Getting the first side started is the hardest part. My wall is really not level at all, so I'm gonna have to make some shims for this first shelf to work off of, because that's pretty bad. It's like touching right here in the center, and then everywhere else it's like almost a 1/4 inch off. But once that's in and level, it's smooth sailing. I wanted this to be super sturdy, so I secured a 2x4 up top into the studs so I had something stationary to install each of my vertical pieces into, and it also helped to use as a spacer to make sure that everything was going straight up and down, but definitely don't forget to actually use a level. So I'm securing my bookshelves to the vertical pieces with pocket holes, and one thing I didn't think about is that my pocket holes are lined up with each other. So the way a pocket hole works is this screw is going to go into this hole, and it's going to come out right here and secure to my vertical piece. And then on the other side of that vertical piece, I have another shelf. So I'm going to have another screw that comes out like that, and they're going to interfere with each other. So I'm going to have to add like another set of holes so that my screws don't clash and these shelves can actually be secure. So I've got my pocket hole jig right here, and I had just been lining all the boards up with this line right here and drilling into this hole. So I'm going to line it up with that again and then drill into this hole. Everything was coming together super well, but the trim pieces definitely pulled it together. I used pre-primed 1x2s for the face of the entire bookcase and a 1x3, or I think it's actually 3.5 inches wide for the top near the ceiling. For the center portion where the TV is, I decided to add a shiplap accent wall. I trimmed out the edges with bead trim to clean it up. I decided to use my sprayer to paint, which I honestly regretted a little bit going into it. The prep is no joke. I honestly question my sanity every time I start doing it. I'm like, is this really going to save me any time? But once it was actually time to paint, I was really grateful that I went that route. I just finished up the second coat of paint on the cabinets, and it is literally 11 o'clock at night. I need to be finished with this tomorrow. So we are on track. We're on track, but I'm gonna go ahead and peel off all of the plastic and the taping that I have while the paint is still pretty wet. And then I'm gonna go outside and finish up painting the doors. Looks good. Good morning, you guys. It is the final day that I have to work on this project. I'm finishing up by doing the baseboards. I have to install the trim around all of the little countertop areas. I need to put the doors on, the knobs on. I'm gonna start with the baseboards, and there is kind of an annoying little situation going on with our baseboards because they installed them underneath the tiles. So they put them like completely on the subfloor and then put the tile on. So the exposed amount of baseboard is smaller than the actual baseboard size, if that makes sense. So our baseboards are 4 1/4, but only 4 inches show. So I At the store, I couldn't find 4-inch baseboard, so I had to buy 4 1/4, and I'm having to rip the bottoms down so that it will be the right height. So I'm ripping the baseboards down. I'm gonna have to use the coping saw for the first time and get all my corners right. I'm going to brad nail it into place, patch all the holes, and then go ahead and do a coat of paint on the baseboards. I'm gonna do the baseboards the exact same color as the shelving unit, so it's called Egret White, and I'm really happy with how the color turned out. It looks really, really, really good, I think, with the wallpaper. So I'm gonna go ahead and start knocking that out. To finish up the whole thing, I added wood trim around the countertop portion. I just used regular pine 1x2s, nothing fancy, but I had stained them to match the countertop. And then I got the doors back on and added my hardware. I decided to use the same exact hardware as we have in our kitchen cabinet since they're directly across the bookcase on the opposite wall. Overall, I am so happy with how this built-in turned out. And if you enjoyed the video and you made it this far, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.